Hey guys, this week's podcast is brought to you in part by theartofcharmpodcast.com. This podcast and way of life is all about personal growth, whether it's relationships, productivity, time management, or just how to be a charmster like yours truly. The show that brings together entrepreneurs, artists, thinkers, leaders, and all-around interesting people together. You deserve an extraordinary life. Go to theartofcharmpodcast.com or find The Art of Charm in iTunes or Stitcher and start taking your life to the next level. I think you'll really enjoy it. But for now, enjoy the show.
This is The Art of Wrestling with professional wrestler Colt Cabana.
It's Colt Cabana.
All right, how you guys doing? Let's do this. Sit down, relax, put in those earbuds if you need to. You are listening to The Art of Wrestling, a professional wrestling podcast. It's a life podcast. It's a personal journal. It's an entry way into the minds and souls, the hearts, and the lives of the people involved in the world of professional wrestling. I am your host. My name is Colt Cabana. I am a chicken kebab eater. I'm a promo maker. Most importantly, though, I am a professional wrestler. And I am sitting here live in the studio apartment in Chicago, Illinois. Before I go any further, this is a fan-supported and listener-supported podcast supported by people just like you. Give it to you free of charge every single Thursday on ColtCabana.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, wherever you get those podcasts from. A couple great ways that you can support, rate, review, and subscribe. Tell a friend via social media. Do it via Instagram, why don't you? Or if you got a couple of bucks in your pocket, head on over to ColtMerch.com, DigitalColt.com, t-shirts, buttons, pictures, posters, DVDs, wrestling, road diaries, so much more. Great way to support DigitalColt.com, ColtMerch.com. Yes, you read that right. Roddy Piper's on the show, the hot rod, Rowdy Roddy. Yes, you read that right. Two-parter. This is maybe the third two-parter. Punks was kind of a two-parter. William Regal was a two-parter, so you know you're in good company. And I'm going to preface this, not only preface it, I'm going to preface this. So good. I mean, so good. I know you're listening to it now, so you're going to go listen to it. But, I mean, really, this is what it's all about. Roddy, present. Not like he gave me a present. He did give me a present of a great podcast, but he's in the moment. He's present. He's a real dude. A lot of the ass kissing by me comes in the second part, so you'll hear that. But why not ass kiss him in the beginning? Because he was so cool. He knew who that's the difference. Some of these guys, I'll be honest with you. I don't think Hillbilly Jim really knew who I was until the moment I met him. And then he was cool as shit. Very cool. But Roddy, doing his homework. He knows who I am. He gets it. I was on his podcast. If you got time, listen to that one. But listen to this podcast. I love Roddy Piper, and I know I am not the only one. I've just gotten off a plane. I've told you about a lot of the travel. Set up a match while I was over in England. Revolution Pro Wrestling, giant show, June 14th at York Hall. Matt Classic and Colt Cabana will tag together at York Hall. You have to be there to see it, to believe it. Not only that, heading back to Germany during that tour. But that was a great time. Usually I'll come on here, I'll talk about my weekend, I'll talk about what I've done, I'll talk about my travels. But there's something I want to give to you guys, and there's also something that I want to talk about a little bit. Something that's been on my mind, the current state of professional wrestling. Because I remember when I was a young lad in wrestling, and I would always hear about how the old guys didn't watch WWE or didn't watch the current product, and I'd always be like, I don't ever want to be like that, and I don't get it. And now I find myself at a point where I'm really not brought in by the current televised wrestling product. And recently I've been asking myself, well, what am I doing? Am I a fan of wrestling? You know, I was at WrestleCon. I was around all of that action. People could not wait to watch WrestleMania. And I watched WrestleMania. I wasn't ecstatic about it. I didn't really want to go to it. I used to love watching it to watch when my friend was like on top of the world. And I still have friends there. And I loved seeing Seth Rollins win the championship. And I loved seeing Claudio involved in a match and Tyson Kidd. And there's a handful of other guys that I really, really enjoy seeing on the screen. That makes me happy. But the wrestling itself, 3 hours is long. All of a sudden, I find myself not dedicating myself to want to watch wrestling. And I ask myself, do I like wrestling? Which is hard because that's what I do for a living. That's what I talk about every single week on a podcast. When you're asking yourself, do you like what you do? And I've preached this before, but it really, really hit me. Yes, I love independent wrestling, which is different from televised professional wrestling. And I think it's because It's what I've been involved with. People's loves and passions change over the years, and I love WWF. I love the Attitude Era. I love the cartoon era. Those were my eras and my passions and my love, and that's why I jumped into professional wrestling at age 18 like I did. But as time went by, I learned to love something else. But it was still wrestling, but it was gritty, dirty, independent wrestling. And I've always wondered why, I wasn't so bothered. And I always kind of knew in the back of my head that I would use the WWE time to kind of get fresh on the indies and go back. And I never really visioned myself. Maybe Seth Rollins, and I bet he does, he envisioned that WrestleMania moment for himself. And for me, I've said this a lot of times, but I just envisioned myself as a journeyman, as a traveler. I did envision myself as a junkyard dog type in WWF, but it was never like that crazy WrestleMania moment. But it was just a guy who wrestled, who did shows, who loved it. And I really think I put my finger on it. It's that independent wrestling spirit. That's the shit I love. I love the VFW halls. Tommy Dreamer talks about it so much. He just loves wrestling. I saw him at WrestleCon. He was in my match, and he just talked about some of the weirdest shit, including a story about Roddy Piper. And he was just like, I love wrestling. The stuff on the fringe, the different stuff, the weird shit. And now, right, with televised, and I'm not trying to bash televised wrestling. It's just not for me. I love the weird shit. And it's so produced that it's hard to get weird. And so while I've been doing this for 17 years now going on, I fell in love with that process of what I was doing. And so I want to take some time on my podcast to show a little love to some other guys, to some other people, to people doing weird shit, alternative shit in the wrestling world. And this sparked something to me. I read something, I forgot who put it out there, but it was about being a critic and saying, hey, why not stop criticizing what others do and go out and make some art? Do something for yourself. If you can't be a wrestler, you can still create. And I love these guys who are creating, who aren't wrestlers. And there's some great ones out there. I love Kayfabe News. I read it all the time. I love the Botch Spot comic. I read the Botch Spot comic all the time. I think Matthew from Botchamania is a fucking genius. Not just as an editor, but just his sense of humor. There's some stuff that I'm not even into. I'm not really into video games, but there's this dude named Joe Gagne who does Funtime Pro Wrestling Arcade on YouTube. And I love the fact that he spends so much time, he's dedicated, he produces something well and great, and he's made an audience for himself. And the next guy, I'm going to let somebody else explain something cool that they've done. I want to play a clip from a show called Bullseye. It's on NPR. It's hosted by Jesse Thorne. He has this wonderful show. Go listen to it. It's so good. Get your head out of the wrestling bubble for a second and join something awesome. I listen to about 30 podcasts a week, and none of them are wrestling. I enjoy culturing myself in different ways. Take a listen to Jesse Thorne explain his love through somebody else's love of Andre the Giant on Bullseye at MaximumFun.org. And then we're going to come back with a little special treat.
I think what's interesting about being superhuman is that you're super, but you're still human. Like Spider-Man turning in photos to the Daily Bugle, Batman being lonely. They're not gods, they're just people trying to deal with this extra thing. What I'm trying to get to here is that Andre the Giant was superhuman. In the mail the other day, I got a comic book biography of him, written by a guy called Box Brown. Just pulling it out of the package was a rush of memories. I wasn't ever really a wrestling fan, at least not like the other kids on the St. Mary's Park baseball team. They used to talk for hours about Hulk Hogan and The Undertaker and all those guys, but the only one I ever really cared about was Andre the Giant. Because he was real. I mean, it was a show, but he was real. 7'4", 500 pounds. His whole body was marked by this disease that made him so big, but I always thought he was something like beautiful. Maybe the breadth of his face, the pain of just being alive was written across it all the time. When he was older, that's when I saw him. Just moving around was hard for him, and you could see it. But then he'd show you this gorgeous, generous smile. Box Brown's biography gets to that. The way that this French country boy could walk into a room and immediately be alienated from and ingratiated to all the people in it. His fellowship with his manager and the wrestlers he worked with, and the loneliness of years on the road squeezed into 2 small bus seats. The subtitle of the book is Life and Legend. And there's a lot of legend around Andre. There's a lot of legend around wrestling, too, of course. It's a mix of real and show, and some of the best parts of the book give us a sort of inside-out look at the dramas in the ring, the story inside the story that I think wrestling fans these days love, but was totally foreign to those kids I played baseball with.
And now entering the ring, the 8th wonder of the world, 438 pounds, Andre the Giant. There is no other human being on earth larger than Andre the Giant. An historic human being.
Song of the Week is somebody also doing something awesome outside of their genre because they don't care what other people think. They love wrestling, and this guy loves wrestling. John Darnielle, who I first heard of. Again, a lot of you guys know I'm not super into music, and I first actually heard of John Darnielle and the Mountain Goats on Bullseye with Jesse Thorne, as those two are friends. I don't know John Darnielle. I've never really communicated that much with John Darnielle, but I love that he is great at music and he loves wrestling, and now he's shouting it out to the world with his new album, Beat the Champ, dedicated to his love of pro wrestling. The whole album dedicated to his love of pro wrestling. And that's who's going to be on the Song of the Week. Of course, Song of the Week is brought to you by DraftKings.com. Daily fantasy sports online. How about them Cubs? Let's play 2. Baseball season is here, and there's never been a better time to check out DraftKings.com, America's favorite daily fantasy baseball site where you could win huge cash prizes every single day. In 7th grade, I played rotisserie baseball where I had to manually write out all of the stats. Guys, times have changed, and so have the players. With DraftKings, there's no season-long commitments. It's like a new season every time you play. For baseball, just pick 2 pitchers and 8 position players, and you can do it daily. DraftKings has already crowned over a dozen millionaires. Instant cash, instant gratification. Hurry to DraftKings.com now and use my promo code WRESTLING to play for free in the $100,000 fantasy baseball contest on opening day. First place takes home $10,000. Use the promo code WRESTLING for free entry now at DraftKings.com. DraftKings.com, that's DraftKings.com. Yep, the song is by the Mountain Goats, John Darnielle, Beat the Champ. Go grab this album on iTunes or mergerecords.com, a non-paid plug. I'm doing it because I want to support the genre, because I love alternative, independent wrestling. So do these guys. Enjoy. We'll be back with Roddy Piper.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Did I have the 1985 Topps Kirby Puckett rookie card? Yes. Did I have the 1990 Topps Gold Cup Jerome Walton Rookie of the Year card? Yes. Is Topps sponsoring this podcast? Yes. And I'm excited. It's a new era, and Topps has an exclusive Major League Baseball trading card app, Topps Bunt 2015, available at Topps.com/Colt. Start collecting cards again, but do it on your phone or your tablet because it's 2015 and we're in a new era. You're not just trading with your friends or bringing them to school. No, the collecting experience allows you to have real-time fantasy-style gameplay. More than 2 million people have played Topps digital collecting app since 2012. People are cracking open more than a pack a second. Trade or compete with friends anywhere, anytime. New cards are released every day with players from the 1950s to the current season. This season, Topps has added a lot of cool things, including an improved interface and tutorials hosted by American League MVP Mike Trout, not to be confused with Cubs journeyman Steve Trout. Head on over to TOPPS.com/Colt and download the app for free. Topps.com/Colt. You just said an interesting statement, Roddy, that you had. So we just did we're doing this convention.
Yes. And
there was an awesome panel that we did, and it was kind of a BS and back and forth. And then everyone was so great, and then this one guy asked a question about this lawsuit that's going on, which obviously I don't want to talk about, right? No. And I said how everybody came up to me and they were apologizing on behalf of this one guy who wanted to kind of ruin the situation. And you said your statement was that I have the people on my side almost.
Huge.
Right.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to say it to you, but I'll say it, we could have said it just while this was off, but I want to throw it on. And it's because I think you can relate to this where I feel I have a lot of sympathy.
It's an interesting, sympathy can be misconstrued as you looking, oh, poor me. I think it's more, just my own thoughts, is it's more the entire audience, fans of ours in the business are looking at it and going, wait a second. You got Colt Cabana, who just was on the cover of Rolling Stone and are inside the magazine. And my quick glimpse at it was basically, look at what this guy's done. You remind me of Gabe Iglesias, the comedian. Because
Fluffy?
Yeah, Fluffy, Big Fluffy. He's a friend of mine, and he eliminated the middleman by his social media, and they did an article on him in USA Today. Well, it was kind of like giving you what you deserve is you worked your buns off to make this a success. It's a very popular podcast, and the people love you. And when this piece of legal action came your way from a billion-dollar company, everybody, including myself, is like, are you serious?
Yeah. Well, doesn't that add to the sympathy almost? I don't want to say poor me, but it's it's just I'm fighting from underneath, I'm really fighting from underneath.
Yes, and that didn't come out of that person that are making these statements against you. Just didn't come. That person checked, and it's really hard to be in the position that you're in as far as this point. You're for your family. You figured out a way to work in the independence and at the same time have a podcast like this that's paying you enough money. It's incredible. You've figured out how to kind of eliminate the middleman,
right.
Do it on your own agenda. But, one of the things that I heard in listening to one of your podcasts where you would say, hey, listen, I don't want to knock anybody here. You had a guest, and it doesn't matter who. It just said, hey, we're not into knocking people here. And that's out of your mouth. That's out of your mouth.
Yeah.
So when a guy is put that much work into it and has all the loyal fans and they're watching, it's corporate stomping on the little guy.
Yeah, the little guy.
And it's like, really?
But I think I have it, and I know we have a mutual friend, and even though Punk was in corporate wrestling, he had it, and I feel you always had it, where it was you were still in that system, you were still this big star, but it always seemed like someone just wouldn't let you shine or wouldn't let you be the man, right?
Yes.
What happens is fans naturally get behind those guys, and you can see it with Daniel Bryan too. But I want to relate this to you, obviously.
Daniel Bryan is a great example. where I think that he kind of slipped through the cracks with the yes, yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't break any of the corporate rules. And all of a sudden, everybody's got yes signs.
Yeah.
You got to go with it.
And he had, and again, I want to jet this right back to you, but he had that 12, 13 years of high level wrestling before he got there. So when you're put in a situation, you're ready for it.
You can handle it.
Right. Much like, I feel it's kind of, it's your story also a little bit.
Yes,
right.
It is because when first coming to the WWF, I had been like maybe 12 territories, but had been on top in LA for about 2.5 years, and did well there. Moved to Portland, Oregon, about 2.5 years. Sold it out 26 weeks. Went to Charlotte. And why I'm saying this because as you may remember in territories, every time you went to a new one, you were nothing, and you had to. So you learned how to get over.
Right.
So went to Charlotte, boom. Then Charlotte, Atlanta, boom. So now here I am in New York, and you like in the war to settle the score, which was the first kind of. It was the pre-WrestleMania by MTV. They wanted me to take a dive, and so just a second. I'm going against a champion, and you want to come back in a tag. Like you didn't make me. A lot of other old timers made me, and all of a sudden I'm your hottest heel within like 7 weeks, and you want to stop me, and then you want to put me in a tag in WrestleMania, and you want to beat me again.
Right.
And I've got no contract.
So that you're just another spoke on the wheel of right?
That's what they tried to do.
And that's almost a territory thing too, right?
Yes.
Like obviously but I'm just spitting it out. Like, let's say, whoever, like if the Hearts are on top on a, that's a bad example.
No.
Who would be Dusty, right? You feed someone to Dusty, get rid of him. Feed someone to Dusty, get rid of him. So you're just a feed and get rid, right?
That's it. Dusty would come up to you and say, good elbow taker. Good elbow. That's like the kiss of death.
Right.
And it's like, hey, whoa, everybody. I've been spending 24/7 at my craft from the beginning, and like the first 4 years, they just beat the shit out of me. Pardon me, beat the dog out of me, man.
Baby Jesus, you can swear as much as you want on here, right?
Baby Jesus. Like from living with Mad Dog Vachon to not Larry Henning, to Don Fargo, who's a bad man, to Jay the Alaskan York, and these different guys that mentored me, Leo Garibaldi. And, I used to go to UCLA when I was working in LA. I think I got there about 18, and I got to tell you my first break, and we'll remember UCLA. Okay. Okay. So I've been bouncing around different territories. I'm like, by this time I'm about 180 pounds, and I play the bagpipes and wear a kilt, right? So Red Bastine, who was booking Dallas, I can only use this kid for 6 weeks doing jobs. Get him into LA. So I come to L.A., and there's this guy named Leo Garibaldi, who back in the Gorgeous George days, they used to give him cars just to drive. His dad and his uncle, Chick Garibaldi, would scare you just to look at him. If you've ever seen the Bugs Bunny cartoon with the wrestler and Bugs is around his head, that's Chick Garibaldi.
Wow.
So Leo Garibaldi looks at me. It's a Hispanic crowd. It's like Grand Street, the Olympic Auditorium, and he's got this real white kid that looks like he can't beat up anybody, wearing a kilt and bagpipes. What am I going to do with this, right? So he says this to me. He comes over and says, "Kid, I'm going to give you a break." Well, like my heart like to jump right. A break, yes. He says, "I'm going to put you in there." They called him Javarook. It was Johnny Rods. And like he had the curtains from the Days Inn on his head, like, ooh, right?
Yeah.
So
imagine him like looking at the mirror in the Days Inn after he puts the curtains on. He's like, oh, this will work, right? And he's ooting to himself. Yeah.
Okay, they'll never know.
Yeah.
And I can get him hung up before I leave again.
Right, yeah. Every time it's a different style curtain. Yeah.
So This is what he says to me. Leo Garibaldi says to me, kid, I want you to go in there with Javel. Don't lay a hand on him. I want him to beat you, slap, and pin you. That's it?
That's your big break.
That's my big break.
Okay.
So here I come down playing the bagpipes, and I would walk with them to the, and people would hit my elbows, and that blow stick you got, by the time my mouth would be bleeding, and I'm smiling because I'm a good guy. Right? I get in the ring, and Javarook had no problem with those orders. He beat the snot out of me, right? And probably for, guessing a good 25 minutes.
Wow.
I mean, beat me.
I'd say, wouldn't the crowd just get really bored?
Oh yeah. But he would beat me up and then go ooh, almost like a Georgie Animal Steel thing.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, and then come back and pin me and pick. They were waiting for someone to run the big run in because this is so bad. It must be an angle.
Yeah.
No. 1, 2, 3. I laid there. Okay. That was on Wednesday, and that's when they did their TVs. And then Friday in the Olympic, they did the house shows. I'm going to myself, well, damn, I don't have any money,
Wait, is there any more to that big break story, or is that coming later?
No, I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
You know me, right? The ADD
I didn't know if that was like a weird bump in the story. Okay, then I didn't want to ruin it. Okay, sorry.
So, next Wednesday, TV came around. And back then, on all billboards across America, I think the cigarette was, it was Marlboro, but they had like a guy, like a cowboy-looking guy with a cowboy hat on, and he had a black eye, and he was smoking, and he said, I'd rather fight than switch. Leo Garibaldi had gone and got me a T-shirt that said, I would rather switch than fight, and he made me Javarook's manager. So I went, this man is, I never want to fight him. And I'm on his his side. It gave me the stick work. And when we became a tag, I could go in there, and beat them up until they started to come out, and I'll tag and get that chicken shit. And it got over. And because that's the best thing to do, I think, when you're really young, is to be you need to be a baby face to get all the moves down and know what you're doing. But when you're real young, everybody should come down and go, I can beat that guy. But if you do the chicken shit heel, they still say that, but they'll pay to see you get beat up.
Yeah.
And put you in the racket. And that's how I got my first break.
And also, I'd say the heel lackey will always get their come around.
Yes.
Or the fans will always, and a horrible example, but a decent example. Like Virgil, he just got shit on for, he was the heel.
Yeah.
He got shit on for so long, but eventually, obviously that didn't, I guess, and you were involved in it, but it didn't really
No, I get you, man.
But if he was ready for it, he would have had a huge babyface run, I think.
Huge.
Right.
Huge. And then once in this tag team situation, Leo, of course, had us split up, and we went against each other. Javarook, because Johnny was going back to New York, and all of a sudden, I'm doing 60-minute Broadways with Chavo Guerrero, and Gory Guerrero's coming in. What a great schooling. The ring was 22 foot square.
Wow.
Is
that the biggest ring you've ever been in?
Yeah, and it was poured, I think, in 1818. Hard.
Yeah.
The mat's never been
I
changed.
was gonna say it stayed in that one. Forever.
Never changed. And
So to be the mouthpiece, someone has to have a lot of, because, and correct me if I'm wrong, at this time you said you're just the guy coming in, going under to everybody.
Yes.
But to give you that ball as the mouthpiece, and then eventually who will be the wrestler, they had to have seen you talk, or was there something there, or is just man, maybe this guy needs something? I don't know.
I hadn't done maybe one interview.
Yeah.
Leo Garibaldi looked at it. He's a genius.
Do you think he saw you talking in the back or something, or just had faith in you?
I think that he saw, I was always very quiet, humble because they tired of getting beat up.
Right.
But when I was with a buddy, we'd start laughing back and forth. And he just had a sense for it. And let me tell you what a genius he was. I learned so much there, and we'll come back to that other point. So my thing was this. I went to UCLA, Melnick Hall, and I would watch it reel to reel. It had all the Gorgeous George, Baron Leone, Warren Bockwinkel. It was all archived. And I used to watch it one frame at a time and learn what they're all about.
Wow.
I was in.
Like the original tape watcher, I guess.
Yeah.
Right?
With Dick Lane, and it was from the Olympic Auditorium, and it was just in Melnick Hall in UCLA, and anybody can go see it. I don't know about today, but,
Yeah.
And they were really nice, and I spent hours in there. And
where did you get that? How did you, get that idea that you could do that?
Nick Bockwinkel's brother, he was a referee, and he had gone to college there.
Huh.
And just tipped me off, and I was so hungry to learn.
Of course.
I did that whole piece of business, and the reason I'm saying this is because back there a little bit was trying to say coming into New York, I was packaged. Okay, so here we go. So
Okay.
Now, I'll tell you what a genius. I rode with Leo all the time. I mean, in our business, genius. Here we go. We're going to Bakersfield. Back then, there was a tag team called Gorman and Goliath. Okay, and then there was Chavo Guerrero, bitter enemies. Gorman and Goliath had come, self for me, I know self for you. I'm a kid.
Yeah.
Wonderful. On the way to Bakersfield, Leo got up. I said, so what you going to do tonight? Leo says, I'm going to have Chavo beat Gorman. Yeah, okay. This ought to be fun. Yeah, bingo. There's no more said. We get to Bakersfield. Leo gets Chavo. I'm Chavo's tag team partner. And Gorman and Goliath in the room. So Leo lays out this finish that is so bad. It's so bad, so wrong. Everybody in the including me.
Leo the genius?
Leo the genius.
Okay.
I mean, it sucked. Okay? And it was kind of featuring Gorman and Goliath in such a left-handed way. He drew it out about 10 minutes to get this off. And then he left. And in Spanish or whatever, I don't know, whatever they were saying, la cucaracha.
Yeah.
And so.
Chica tu madre.
Yes.
Cabrón.
There you go, brother. And so Leo came back. He got him so angry that Gorman say, I'm putting Chavo over in the middle of the ring. Just to show up the booker of how bad it was.
Yeah.
I'm going to let me show you.
Right.
Chavo beat him in the middle of the ring.
Wow. And that's what he's going for. Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Now we're talking psychology.
I was just going to say, man, that's...
And that's when you learn how to draw money.
Mm-hmm.
So
where did it snap for you? Where did you figure out that he had done that? Right? Because
not until actually, because I was nervous going in, and I had to do my own thing.
Yeah.
But once the night was over, and I was driving back with him, and I got my 6-pack of beer, and he got his, whatever, and he started laughing at me. And he's the kind of guy that he was mentoring me.
Mm-hmm.
What could I say?
Yeah.
It was genius.
Right.
And then that's when he started teaching me psychology of the business. It was kind of like I had the one tackle drop down, get it again, down. Now it's time to teach you how to draw money.
But that's also business practice. And I would say, on how Vince is like, I need this guy to work with this guy, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not just business psychology. That's business how am I going to get this guy to lose to this guy? Right?
Yes. Yeah, it is business practice.
Yeah. It's just a whole different side of it. It's just amazing.
And Leo wasn't the only, especially back then, that knew psychology like that. Mm. So I've seen wars of psychology between two guys that were real, really good. But what? And then like I would sometimes on the same card, same night, I'd be the special referee. I would manage someone, and I'd wrestle main event in 60 minutes Broadways. I was all over the place. And Paul Vachon one time said to me, "You will never have to work any harder than this." I was there for about 3 years. And then
that was L.A., right?
That's Los Angeles. And it turned out to be Los Angeles and Frisco. And that's where Pat came in. Pat was the America's champion or the U.S. champion. I was like the America's whatever. I think he was going to Japan, and he came down, and we did a 2 out of 3 falls, and I kept my belt, he kept his belt, and maybe I pinned him, and he went to Japan, whatever it was. That was my first
And so at that
contact.
break, and like you said, like you were kind of the top guy in L.A., right?
Yes, sir.
And you hadn't been before. You hadn't been any top guy.
No.
Right.
No.
And so where does kind of going back to where we started this conversation of like how Brian's he's ready for it. Do you think you were ready? Obviously, because you took the ball and you did well with it, and you did what you did at the Coliseum, and at the same time, you were going to Portland too, or is that incorrect?
No, San Francisco.
But also Portland too. I know there's a point you were.
So when
you were such a big baby face in Portland too, right?
well, yeah. I was a heel first, because now that's another thing that they teach you. You come in as a heel, and then you make them accept you as a baby face because it doubles your run. Now I can.
That's such a great trick, man.
I'll give you the simplest one is WrestleMania 1 or 0. WrestleMania, no number. You know what it was. WrestleMania 2, I'm boxing Mr. T. Round 3, the entire crowd's chanting my name.
Yeah.
It was their idea.
Right.
So they made it work.
And I'll say this: was it your idea to make it their idea?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But they don't know that.
No.
Right.
Clue. It's all in the promo and the way you conduct yourself. It's like wrestling for next week is the way that used to be preached was. So where are we? Indianapolis. We're wrestling here. Well, every move you make in the ring here is for next week. You're not here to make this crowd and to entertain this crowd. You're there to make that crowd come back next week, because every town ran like Monday was the same town, Tuesday same town. So you had to wrestle for next week.
So can I hit that point a little bit, because I think that's interesting, and I just want to make it clear, like, it's not that like you want to give them the best show possible, though. It's not like you don't want to try, because you'll hear like, oh, we got their money already. I get that we want to get their money next week.
Yeah.
But is it less like I want to try as hard as I can this week, or is it more like I got to work
Balls to the wall.
It is still.
Oh yeah,
right.
Because that's what's going to bring. Well, that's part of what's going to bring them back
next week. Right.
You want them just peeing in their chairs. Mm-hmm. But it's like when you leave a territory, as you're growing and growing, never peak. Get out first. Then you always stay over. It's the same thing with a match. No, you're right. They're screaming and they're hollering for all the reasons that you've told them.
Yeah.
And then it's like I don't want to be too graphic, but if you're with a lady, you don't want to come in the first 10 minutes, 10 seconds.
Yeah, story of my life, right? Yeah.
Me too, baby.
No wonder I'm single right now.
Those were examples that I was given. Hey kid, you don't want to come in the first 10 seconds. Mm-hmm. Oh, you know me? So wrestling for next week was the excitement stuff, but it's all in the psychology. Mm-hmm. And don't just bring them, if 1 to 10, bring them to 9.3 and boom, and don't wind up that piece of business, because next week that's what let me see that other 3%.
What was the traveling? What was the LA circuit? I guess.
Oh man, it was
Monday,
great.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah,
right?
Like Monday. Well, let me see. Monday was Pico Rivera, which was just a ring and a bar. Okay. Tuesday was San Diego. Wednesday Wednesday was TV in the Olympic. Thursday was Bakersfield. Friday was the house show in the Olympic.
They run the Olympic twice a week.
Yeah.
And what were the numbers there? In the thousands?
No.
Okay.
In the beginning, for TV, maybe, rough guess, 1,000. House show, 2,500. In an arena that probably holds, 10 or 11,000.
Is it?
But finally sold it out.
Okay. I mean, now we just think about today because that point is very interesting. Today, when you run on TV, those are your bigger houses. House shows are down. You were saying TV was less, and house shows were up.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird. It's weird to me, not to you, but now it looks like it just hit you.
It did.
Yeah. Why back then was no one went to TV tapings?
Because
It's at the same place, right?
It's the exact same place.
Is it because it's a weekday?
No. Yeah. Why?
You know, today's society, it's like everybody wants to be on TV, even the fans.
Yeah.
It just wasn't.
They didn't have that then. And
no one wanted to be a reality star.
Also, the card for Wednesday was never made public. So it wasn't, I still remember the number. All right, 95171, get your tickets. That's the number for the Olympic. But they wouldn't say, hey, Wednesday, come on down. Because they had whatever they had. And then you would work whatever angles that you were working. And that would be, all right, you got 2 days, all right, 9, and the hard sell. And then Friday would be the house show, no TV. But they never...
But they gave the big matches. The big matches were on the house shows, right?
Yeah. And on TV, it was very much, just a lot of squash jobs, and no, they didn't, the TV, it wasn't like it is today. People didn't go to be on TV, or it wasn't this great arena. It's just TV. I know.
It sounds weird to me.
It does,
but I know you completely get it. Like
I do, and I'm having
yeah.
trouble making the translation for you, to be honest. It's
for my generation, it just sounds bizarre. It's like, no, of course. But there was people that realized, and obviously you were someone who realized the importance of television to get right.
Yes.
But I guess if you're one of the squashy guys, like they almost probably don't want to be on TV squash. Yeah. Maybe, I don't know.
No, well, I think with all professionals, even if you're a good carpenter, you get out there and you give it the best you can. Yeah. And, you squash them, but you give them the best you can. But it was like, it's Friday night, a good night to fight. Look out. And that's where the hullabaloo was. And the television taping, because nobody ever really saw themselves on TV, and it was in Spanish, it was just TV. And that's the way they looked at it.
Yeah.
And then the house show, which was kind of cool because you could try different techniques, and in 2 days you'd know. Like I'd say, what are the tickets doing? What are the tickets doing? And if I did something in particular, and I really got a surge, I'd kind of like keep that one. If I did something, it's like, we're dying here.
Right.
It was a way of weeding out things for me that worked and that didn't work.
Now, can I hit you with something?
Go for it.
Which might either blow your mind or not. But I know, like on your podcast when we talked, you were a little hesitant about social media and everything. But essentially, that was Twitter. Like the gratification, like yours is 2 day gratification.
True.
But it's like, I'll write a joke. How many favorites? How many retweets? A lot. It's like, ooh, that worked. And like, so essentially that was Twitter, and that's how it's grown.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, like, if that helps you see how important that is to guys like me who didn't have that, hey, if we do it on a TV on a Wednesday, will it work on a Friday or will it not work? Yeah.
One thing that is never really mentioned, there was a code, and it was hard to get it. They beat you up bad. When people got to understand what getting beat up means. First of all, you're on every night at 8 on the first match. Okay, so you started to realize that 8 o'clock every night you're going to get beat up, which gets really old. But they would do, they'd put me in the sugar hole, And then they would talk to me. I'm going to let you breathe for 9, 8, 7. Okay, I'm not going to 9. And then you just come around. I'm going to let you, for like 5, 7 minutes.
This is in a match.
In a match, yeah, right on. They just stretch me, talk to me, tell me now this is going to hurt. Now I'm putting you out. They just, and I would have ran away. I just didn't have any place to go.
Yeah.
And then when I got to L.A., I was about 19, 18, Judo Gene Lavelle got a hold of me and started helping me in the self-defense.
He's the guy to do it, huh?
Yeah.
Someone was telling me that, like, if he was around, if MMA was around then, he would have been the king.
Yeah.
Right?
They still call him the godfather of MMA.
Wow.
And he comes from Carl Gotch, Judo Gene, and in that era. He trained Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris. I used to go motorcycle riding with him. He's my dad. I wrote a couple of books with him. I just wrote Judo Gene is good. I didn't. Not like this is Rod's technique. No. But, he loved me because I wouldn't quit. I'd try as hard as I could, no matter how bad I was.
Yeah.
And he eventually took me motorcycle, dirt bike ride. It was a great time.
I gotta not to get off a little bit, but I have a little weird question for you. So it seems like people have taken to you, and you've gotten a lot of these great mentor roles, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and something that I've always said is like, I guess, and I don't want it like any like dirt, or, you know what I'm saying, but like, was Vince like it seems like you and Vince McMahon maybe weren't in that mentor role, or maybe you were at one time, but it's not there.
No, I'll tell you. When I first came the first time I came to New York was a disaster. And I'm sure you must.
I just my buddy recommended me watching the Hogan versus Piper on the network, and you talked about stuffing the which is crazy.
So I'm on top in L.A. at the time, and they wanted me to fall because here's something that needs to be known. At that time, with the Gorgeous George era, and it got out that matches were being fixed, it fell. All right, just fell, bottom came right of it. But there was all these guys like 30, 33, they were the next main events. And all of a sudden,
business is bad.
So their attitude, somebody coming up, I missed mine, to heck with you.
That's interesting, yeah.
And they were mean. And back then too, they all could take care of themselves in, one form or another. And they didn't want nobody. They didn't want anybody. So
I was talking about like Vince taking the mentor role that so many, it seems like, have taken like you under your wing.
With Vince, we got along so great. When I came up to New York the second time, Vince was trying to figure out sports entertainment, and I come up to a bar in St. Louis with him. And I said, give me this segment. And all of a sudden we went and did it. And Vince goes, kind of like, that's the first step. That's what I'm trying to do. Piper's Pit. I mean, we got along great. He was I would say a little bit of a fan of Rod's, or I think we're a little alike. And with the difference of the money situation. Let's not be bullshitting about that, Rod. I'll tell you. But I love the guy. I love the guy. He's twisted, and we fight. But deep down inside, there's a respect on both sides. I guess I've. So you kind of go to the code. Keep me with Vince. Okay. Back then we'll go to Leo Garibaldi. There was a code an oath. It was your honor. Like, if we make you the champion, don't get your ass kicked in a bar now. There was a whole and these are just simple examples that if somebody said wrestling was fake, boom, be all over it. And that was beat into you, literally. But here's something that I hope interests the fans. When the Gorgeous George, and that all came down, and then territories all over the place, what was necessary to bring some kind of credibility back was guys that lived it 24/7. So now Flair, for instance, he was in his Armani suits, and every place he was, he's Ric Flair. Myself, every place I was, and I didn't wear my kilt or nothing, but I was the Roddy Piper that they knew, which, was a little bit of a detriment to us and our families. But they needed to look at somebody, it's the same person, to try to get some kind of credibility back. And that led to, like, hitting harder. Go.
I'm just going to say, I feel, I don't know these, you might know a little more. In my mind, when I've been around Ric Flair, it just seems like that's the same person. Whereas I feel there is a different Roddy Piper from the TV and Roddy Piper the man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that seems like you were knowing you had to put on this show. Whereas I think Flair was just him.
Flair's him. But
like
that's his. And I love him with all my heart. But that's Rick's. What do you call it? Like Achilles that's his tendon. Life. That's his Achilles tendon. He loves it.
Right.
He loves it, man. And Hogan, he loves it.
Almost always on, though. But I feel know how to turn it off.
Yeah.
With the family and with the, right?
Because, like, I'm dad.
Yeah.
And I don't go home like that.
Right.
And I got into the business by an accident, but to make money. I didn't get in. I never even thought of being on a camera my whole life. I'd never seen a wrestling match. But $25 I needed really bad. So mine was, so you're right. There's some guys who just love being it. I'm not necessarily that guy, but you get caught up in a wheel and you're rolling like I didn't have a family then. And you're rolling and you're fighting everybody. And there's no real cops, and like we go into, let's make up any town, some Erie, Pennsylvania. So, I'll do promos for 3 weeks, Erie, why does Ric Flair date 2 girls at the same time? That way when he falls asleep, they got someone to talk to, and then I'd come into Erie, and do my best to get all the heat I could. Now, the arena closes, and everybody's hungry, including me. We all go to Denny's. First thing I do is I just walk right in the kitchen, give the cook $20. Please don't spit my food. Every
you're
night.
the heel, because you're, yeah.
And I stabbed 3 times. An inch from the heart, like, get your back against the wall. And you get in and out. But this is every night for years. Mm-hmm. So you became very, the code and very rough. Because sometimes just kind of being rough and puff up a little bit saves you from having to combat, And that's why, bring it up to my first meeting Vince, about 76, with the Olympic Auditorium in L.A. will go, it started selling out. And then the Cow Palace. And went up to Portland for a couple of years. And, I don't think we're around 78. And it sold out 26 weeks in a row. My point is that wrestling, especially off of Ted's TBS channel, was coming around. And it was swelling when I got to Charlotte with Ric Flair being the headliner there. Holy cow. And then all of a sudden Atlanta and the Omni. So there was this huge buzz going on. And Ole Anderson was the booker. You know Ole? I mean,
I've met him before. He wasn't the kindest of souls.
I call him Pigface because he's got a big wart.
And I mean, you've heard, for my generation, we've heard the rumors of Ole Anderson.
All right, so Ole Anderson's a booker. I remember one time being with Sergeant Slaughter, and I'm driving, and Ole's in the back, and I've got a just 2-door car, and I can't remember saying something about I wasn't tough enough to be the champion. I wasn't afraid or something. And just standing on the freeway, car sideways, and talking, and Ole's trying to get out of the car. To heck with you, big face. Yeah, all over it. But you know what? Ole Anderson, Johnny Valentine and Ole Anderson, he taught me something that made me start making money.
Okay.
First coming in with Flair, did the stuff on TV, and now first time around, And this particular club, it was Richmond. And, it was, and you talk to anybody, and it was sold out, right? Hanging from the rafters.
Of course.
But whatever, it was an indication of they wanted to see us go. So Rick and I went out there, and, you always put in some time. I don't know, 30, 35 minutes, and the crowd screaming, and boom. I'm not exaggerating a bit here now. Crowd screaming, boom. We both come back different ways, and even some of the, what a match, and I got the happy thing going on,
Yeah.
and I come in, and there's Ole Anderson sitting down, and I look at him, and he goes, well, that sucked.
Wow. Which is just the worst. I'm saying as a wrestler, I mean, I know you've been just the worst thing to hear.
Just like, I don't know how, just take the air right out of my balloon.
Yeah.
Right?
Especially that high was so high probably out there, of course.
And it was the first time Rick and I had actually engaged, right?
Yeah.
And we both of it were giving it everything we could. To heck with the bump. I'll take the pain. Go, throw me.
Yeah.
And that sucked. But this is what he taught me.
Okay.
He said, you guys are out there flying around like a bunch of idiots. Why don't you get your feet on the ground and act like a fighter? How am I going to bring that back? How are you going to top it? Holy cow. And it made me back off the high spots, get my feet on the ground, get my hands up, and be a fighter. Mm. Things like, when you go in the ring, first thing I do for my training is I look at your boots. Because if your toes are worn out, you're a comer. If your heels are worn out, you're going to back up on me. Check your shoulders. If you got one higher than the other, then you got an injury over here. It's all just the way you're trained.
Right. So you originally, you liked the flying around. It's so funny because those things are said to every generation past it. I mean, even in the wrestling of our age has changed a lot, but it's still even when I was coming up, you still heard what are you gonna, which, and I guess there was a group we were with, Ring of Honor, and you were there for, there was a couple times that, I saw you years ago, 10, I mean, maybe you don't remember me, but it was 10, 12 years ago, you'd show up and do a show here and there, but it's just they were always well, how are you gonna top this? How are you gonna top this? How are you gonna top this? And I think a lot of us learned at a young age, we wanted to get that. We wanted to do it. We got it out of our system, and then we learned to get characters, and we learned to psychologically to show up money, right? Yeah. So it's a thing that's been it's still instilled today at a different degree, but it's still there,
Yeah, Ring of Honor is a really good example, even as it is today. And I'm one of them guys. Anybody that answers a bell has got my total respect. Mm. And some of the flying is incredible. And I was watching it, and they were flying, and I think two guys got tired, and one guy grabbed a hold. Thank you, baby Jesus. Just hold on to it. Trust me. And they started chanting. Mm. It's when the Richmond and Flair and I, what we were doing is we were letting the people tell us what to do, because I didn't making it up. So I take a hell of a backdrop. And they came out, let me take a bigger one. Mm. Flair went up. No, we tell you what to do. Yeah. Get your feet on the ground. Right. And once you start doing that, because you love them and you want them to have you're going to give them everything. It's a lot easier to go about doing it, and that's how you can bring them back. Mm. When they start chanting my name, is their idea.
Right, exactly.
Close enough.
So, Roddy, let me say this real quick. Will you come back next week with me?
Of course.
Okay.
I'd love to.
Okay, so we're gonna shut this one real quick.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little. I want to talk Adrian Adonis. I want to talk Bad News Brown. I want to talk some movie stuff.
Okay.
Cool. Can we do that next week?
Yeah, I'd love to.
All right, great. All right, no joke. Next week, just as good, if not get better. You better believe I ask him about Bad News Brown and that paint situation. For those of you who know. For those of you who don't, go YouTube Roddy Piper versus Bad News Brown, WrestleMania. All right, we'll be back next week. Before we get out of here, let's get into some plugs and
upcoming events.
All right, the best way to eat the sport, ColtMerch.com and DigitalColt.com. I am on Twitter and Instagram at Colt Cabana, Facebook/AOW Podcast and Colt Cabana. I got a very public email, ColtWrestling@gmail.com. Maybe you want to put me on your upcoming show or convention. CutMyPromo.com. I'm letting somebody else cut my promo weekly Monday nights. ColtCabana.com is my website. There I got a P.O. box where you can send me some snail mail. Now, I'm not sure if this was the Reddit gift exchange that these guys asked me to do, but somebody sent me a D'Lo Brown autographed 8x10 and a Jared from Subway book. Pretty great. Upcoming events tonight, if you're listening to this Thursday, April 9th, I'm in Chicago. I'm doing a comedy show with friends, watching Bad Wrestling. ColtCabana.com to grab that ticket, or come on out to the Fizz Bar locally. Friday, April 10th, Berwyn, Illinois. AAWrestling.com. Saturday, April 11th, LaSalle, Illinois. DreamWaveWrestling.com. April 19th to May 4th, I'm going to be in Japan for Pro Wrestling Noah and the Global Tag League. Saturday, May 9th, when I come back, Summit, Illinois. ResistancePro.com. Saturday, May 23rd, Rahway, New Jersey, ProWrestlingSyndicate.com. That's it for this week. You know who's coming back next week. That's always kind of cool that you actually know, and I hope you're ready for it and you're eager to listen to part 2 with Roddy Piper. I want to thank you guys at home for listening every week. I truly appreciate it. Thanks to Roddy Piper for coming on this week. We'll see you next week. Thanks to Cable Guy Jeff and Stu Stone, Kid Russell, and Matt Jenkins on the music, Dane Miller with some tech help. Let's thank some sponsors, highspots.com. Hundreds of full-length titles available to download, plus $5 wrestling, AMA knee pads, gear, a wrestling ring, the Freight Train documentary. Cliff Compton's got a show on there. So many goodies at High Spots. OneHourTees.com, who help run ProWrestlingTees.com, the place where you can directly support your favorite independent wrestler, people that don't have a contract, put money in their pocket by wearing their threads. And tweakedaudio.com/Colt, the earbuds that I use, get over 30% off and free shipping just because you listen to this show. We're done. I'm yelling from my apartment, and people can definitely hear me outside, but it hasn't stopped me now, it hasn't stopped me before, and it won't stop me in the future. Sometimes I have to wait when they're doing construction, or there's beeping, or people are just yelling. Some dude last summer just had BBC radio on super loud all day. Actually went over to his house and asked him to stop doing it. I tried to be really cool about it. I was like, you don't have to if you don't want to, but it's super loud. I didn't say I can't do my podcast because that would sound just hipstery, wouldn't it? I mean, I know I'm doing a good thing, but he don't know. He'd just be like, oh, sorry about your podcast. I have to watch BBC. But he turned it off, thankfully. There's some noise out there. Trains go by. But luckily, got a good system here where you can't hear any of that bullshit. No longer can you hear me either, at least live or in your ears. You can go back and listen to some old ones. But I'm getting out of here. This has been The Art of Wrestling. For Colt Cabana, I'm Colt Cabana. Thanks.